you lovely computer people, and welcome back to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market with an episode that we've been trying to do for years, but finally we got a specimen big and pretty enough to talk about it. Yes, this plant in front of you is an onion. I know what you're thinking. Oh god, he's on onions again. Sweet Jesus, we remember the trauma of the leek video. Don't worry, this won't be that bad. This one's actually really fascinating, I promise. This plant is Allium x proliferum, commonly called walking onion, because these onions are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. My onion breath will walk all over you. Had to finish the joke. So they're in the Amaryllidaceae family, which is the amaryllis family, as are all onions, which includes, by the way, garlic, which is an onion. It's an allium. The word allium may be from the Greek word elio, meaning to avoid, referring to ancient Greeks' original impression of garlic. Now, this plant may or may not be native to India or Pakistan, and there's some question to that, and I'll explain that in a bit. And I should also point out the term proliferum means this plant readily self-proliferates without difficulty. So, it's hardy in USDA zones 3 through 10. It is classified as a hardy perennial in general, but in our zone, 8B, thank you climate change, it is a hardy evergreen perennial, meaning that it does not die back to the ground in winter. Its soil pH preference is 6.5-ish, and it prefers loamy sand or sandy loam soil. Now, if you've ever seen the soil triangle, you know what I'm talking about when I say it like that. Those are two different soil types where the dominant item is the first one, so loam sand, and then sandy loam. We have those kind of soils here in the sandhills of North Carolina, and, they're not hard to find. Onions grow well in certain soils. A lot of people grow them in muck, but that's an entirely different conversation. That's for Allium cepa, or your common onions. Its exposure is full sun to partial shade, which, this specimen certainly has had and looks fabulous. Marvelous. Its height can be up to 1.5 feet, which this one most certainly is. It's actually pushing the 2 foot, I want to say the 2 foot area at this point. Its width can be up to 1 foot, and that's referring to an individual cluster of bulbs. This onion will side shoot down near the base and produce these offshoots, but it will also produce clones of itself on the stems. And there's one there. We're going to zoom in real quick for your edutainment benefit. Let's zoom in. Okay. See that? These are the bulbs that are carried on the top of the stems, henceforth the walking. The stems bend and they droop outward, and the plant skips across your garden, henceforth the walking name. That's how they got that name. It's a physical thing. So whenever you hear walking in the plant kingdom, it means it proliferates in some way using its stems, like the walking iris, which we covered, I believe, last year in a short and full-size video. Now, genetic testing has revealed that these plants are a diploid hybrid of shallots, Allium cepa. Shallots were merged into Allium cepa and can not necessarily considered a separate. They didn't have enough difference to be considered a separate species from normal onions. And the Welsh onion, which is Allium fistulosum, which then casts question on the India-Pakistan thing, because if it's a Welsh onion, right? Okay, well, that's obviously from Wales. But the Allium cepa, is it one that came from the area India-Pakistan, or is it, Allium cepa is pretty widespread. So, did it originate from there? And if so, that explains the origination in the cross. Someone, probably a colonizer, brought it out there, they crossed, and then brought it back. But there's even more question to that, because the name Egyptian onion may have came from the Romans bringing it to Europe from the Indian subcontinent. Now, there are other sources that say it's the Romani, which I believe is a type of gypsy. Don't quote me on that. But apparently so. And that leads to why I use the term walking onion. A second close one is tree onion. And a third one is top-setting onion, because they're all accurate and they're not area specific. The term Egyptian onion is false, because these onions are known not to be from Egypt at all. So that could just be clever marketing of some sort. Now, beyond that, this plant is not susceptible to Juglone, which is the compound that comes off black walnuts and walnut trees that suppresses and weakens growth in other plants. Cool. These plants, however, may get thirps in hot, dry summers, and you can hear the yowling in the background. It's because the lab cats are mad that they can't hop on the table and eat this plant. They were eating it in several outtakes. Anyway, calm your pants. The Cuban blockade has failed. Call the president. We have a disaster. Anyway, Menace does what he wants to do. Anyway, young plants are used like scallions. They're tender and edible. Old bulbs can be very pungent. You can eat the little bulbils, that's what the little tiny clone bulbs on the tips of the stems, you can eat them like you would shallots. So the whole plant is edible. In fact, old foliage is edible, but I would advise pureeing it because it can be a little tough. And so pureeing it basically lacerates the fibrous parts of the stem and allows you to eat it safely. The stems are hollow, as you would expect from almost any onion. And they are very aromatic, which is why I had to blockade the cats, because Twinkle Toes over here in the background was chewing on this like it was the greatest thing ever. The lab cats are weird, what can I say? But anyway, so that's the summary of walking onion. Now, my tips and tricks for this plant. I have been growing a stand of walking onions in the test gardens for almost 10 years at this point, maybe a little longer. And I can tell you this, they can withstand a lot, including complete and utter neglect. So they get points for that. But this specimen is in a pot with good soil and is getting regularly watered and occasionally fertilized, and look at how fluffy it is. I bet you it's really flavorful. Based on where the cats were chewing and the amount of aroma that came out, very pungent. And this plant will reproduce the entire stand that I used to have just from this one plant, which is a win for everybody. And one of my stage lights went off, but that's okay. Now, you don't have to worry about flowers. You don't have to worry about pollinators. You don't have to worry about splitting them. Well, eventually you will have to divide clumps, but whatever. That's the same for almost any onion. As long as the soil is well draining, they're easy to grow. Mine are in full sun, and they're doing amazing. The watering is key, though. You get the best onions when you get regular water. So I wouldn't treat them like a basil. I'd treat them more like water regularly like you would with a okra plant. Okay? And maybe a little bone meal or something else to add phosphorus to soil so their pungency is there backing you up. So, with that said, that is walking onions in a nutshell. And as always, folks, if you have any comments or thoughts, please leave them in the comments section. If you like this episode, hit like. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And as always, folks, thanks for watching. Hit up the Forage blog for crazy wild harvester info, or maybe not, other stuff. And keep them growing. Thanks again for watching.